So thank you for being part of all this. We're talking about giving tonight, and that's a really difficult thing to talk about. So you might want to talk about how good you find the group, what you find particularly helpful about it, and just some things about general life, praying for each other, and making the most of the opportunity to meet together. So that's a few ideas, but it would be great if you could talk about generosity and giving and the way that our God is a generous God, and that uh, when we live generously, we line up with the God that we worship. We line up with the God who created the world, who saved us, and who continually pours out His blessings upon us. And it might be worth thinking about what does it look like to be part of a community that is generous to each other and to outsiders. What does it mean to have a life that's generous and in line with God's character and God's purposes? Hallowed be your name. Want your character to be exalted, and we can live like that as we give generously. Then there's the whole idea about God loving a cheerful giver, and how we can encourage each other to give and to be generous and to do it cheerfully and well. Talk about what makes you happy as you give. What is it that motivates you to give? What is it about the church that you appreciate that you give to? What is it about the what is it that what are the things that you invest in cheerfully? That would be a good thing to talk about, because as Paul says, God loves a cheerful giver, and if we give cheerfully, then we attract God's blessing, which is another truth around this. It'd be good to hear some stories. If you've got stories about God's blessing of you as you've given, that would be fantastic. It would be good to hear about material blessings, about uh, just about character, and who who's developed a good name and been blessed with a good name because they've been generous. It would be good to talk about spiritual blessings as well, in line of Cornelius and others who, the rich young ruler who was promised spiritual blessings if he was generous. So that would be a good thing to talk about and to tease out, and how our uh, financial giving has released spiritual blessings into your life. That would be a great thing to talk about too. Talk about how God is your source, and how uh, our giving reflects the truth that all things come from Him, and of His own have we given Him. Uh, and then it would be good to tease out something around the way that our giving is part of our devotions, how we see it as a whole in terms of our devotional life, and whether we see prayer and Bible reading and giving as sort of as a as a group, as a team, along with fasting and quiet and study and all the other spiritual disciplines, uh, or whether we see it as something that's very separate. I think one of the difficulties of our society is that money is very compartmentalized, and so often you hear sermons where the application, and try not to do this at Kingsland, but the application is really read more of the Bible and pray more. And rarely does give more come into that equation, because we've separated that. Whereas for the Jew, prayer and giving and fasting were all sort of part of the same thing, as part of our devotions. And then remind each other that the Father sees what you do in secret, and remind each other that Jesus expects us to be generous, expects us to be people who give. Have a good time as you talk about this stuff. I hope that will be helpful. I'm sure it will. It might be difficult discussion, because it does hit on the false god of mammon, and his attempts to, or its attempts to dominate our lives. So try and avoid that. Keep it light, keep it good, keep it helpful and productive and useful, and keep it bathed in prayer. And I'm sure you'll have a great time as you talk about this stuff together. I'll see you in a bit. Bye bye.